Hey, welcome back to a special episode of Suiting Up Varsity, where we love stories of the sound of the band, the smell of popcorn, the feel of a letter jacket, and the sight of teenagers hoisting trophies high above their heads. And mostly, we love stories about the great history and exciting athletes of Nebraska high school sports. All right, well, this is a test to see if we can do just a podcast out of the blue because I had an idea. I was looking at the schedule this week. I'm kind of fired up about high school football, and I asked myself, well, what are the best rivalry games this weekend? And for me, rivalry means a little bit of history, and so I thought, well, let's take a look at week one and let's see what games pop out. Okay, and so let's see if these games popped out to you as great rivalry games. All right, here's one. I saw Fairbury and Superior going to be meeting down on Nebraska's great southern coast, and I thought, wow, that's a game. That's two significant communities down there, one on the Republican River, one on the Little Blue River. I bet they've been playing for a long time. Was I right? The answer is kind of. Okay, they definitely played back in the early days, way back to at least the 20s and early 30s. But then their paths diverged in a wood, if you will. Fairbury, you got to remember, was a Class A team for a long time. Superior was more Class B. And so they had different conferences. Fairbury spent years playing Lincoln Northeast and Beatrice and Hastings, whereas Superior was experimenting with different conferences down south and then up north. And really, they don't kind of meet again. They went a long time without playing, as far as I can tell. Again, at Suiting Up Varsity, we don't have every score from every team every year. Boy, I wish we had that database, but we don't. But in the late 60s, early 70s, they come back together where they're both Class B teams, and they are playing again. And so that kind of went year by year. They played a lot from then until the early 90s. I think I've got a picture here from 93 with Fairbury at Superior. Now they're both Class C teams, Fairbury in C1, Superior in C2, and they're meeting again. So hopefully this will be the start of a rekindling of that rivalry. Okay, I kept looking down the list. I saw Wood River and Centura back from my folks' old stomping grounds there. Highway 11 rivals. I know those two have been playing for a long time. Centura opened in 1968, went right into the Lou Platte. Both teams have been in the Lou Platte every year. So through the conference era, they obviously played every year, I would assume. Now, once the state took over, I don't know. And they've been up and down in classifications a little bit. Centura people would probably know better. Wood River people would know. And then Wood River had that co-op with Shelton for a little while. But they've been definitely playing for a long time. I got some pictures. I think I've got a 1983 picture, I think. I know that's Centura because the shoulder yokes, man, that's a Centura thing for a long, long time. And I love that Eagle helmet. And then we've got a Scott Frost era picture. Centura still in shoulder yokes. I'm pretty sure that's Centura. Somebody once told me it was St. Paul. So I don't know, but they've been playing a long time for sure. All right. Keep looking at the schedule. We're headed to the big city. The Battle of Millard, the three-way Battle of Millard is really one of our best rivalries. We got Millard North and Millard West going at it at Buell Stadium tonight. That rivalry has been going on, I would think, pretty much every year since Millard West opened in 1995. Isn't it ironic that now that Millard North has abandoned the tape and Millard South has gone to multiple helmets, that it's Millard West, the new kids on the block, who have the most traditional classic helmet? Though, who knows what they might break out tonight, right? This rivalry is interesting because it goes back to a different team. Millard North and Millard South. I love this 1983 colored picture of the Battle of Millard. That would have been the third from when Millard High split into North and South in 1981. And then here's 1998, Judd Davies of Millard North. You can kind of see the athletic tape around his helmet being tackled by a Millard West foe. All right. Now we go way out west for our next one. Perkins County against Dundee County Stratton. Now, of course, that hasn't always been the names, but this goes way back Grant and Benkelman have been playing at least since the formation of the Frenchman Valley Conference. So I bet they played nearly every year from 32 to 68, though the Frenchman Valley had some 11-man, 8-man issues at times. Probably the best story I know out of Benkelman and Grant comes from 1970. And you guys know enough about the great Grant history to know that Grant probably had the upper hand on the series. But in 1970, Benkelman was outplaying Grant and was leading going into the fourth quarter when suddenly Grant gets a couple quick touchdowns and Benkelman's down in a game it looks like they were going to win. But then Kenny Freeze, I assume it's Freeze and not Fries, quarterback Kenny Freeze for Benkelman rolls out to pass, throws a ball that's deflected by a linebacker high in the air. Freeze, good old Kenny, he just keeps going from where he threw it. He catches his own pass, which is now legal because it's been deflected, and he runs it down very close to the Grant goal. He sets up the winning touchdown. Benkelman 18, Grant 13 in one of the greatest games. I wish I had a picture of that 1970 game. I'm going to keep my eyes out for that. All right, I kept looking for rivalries, and I found a couple that go together. St. Cecilia is playing Grand Island Central Catholic, and Aquinas is playing SCOTUS this weekend. Guys, have you ever wondered why the Centennial Conference was not called the Nebraska Catholic Conference? It's because these four teams formed the Nebraska Catholic Conference before the Centennial came along. So they've been playing for a long time. In fact, St. Cecilia and Grand Island St. Mary's were playing six-man football way back in the late 30s, early 40s, just after the game was invented. And then they, of course, kept playing for a long time after moving to 11-man. Aquinas and SCOTUS have been playing since the days of David City St. Mary, which opened in the late 50s, and I think SCOTUS would have still been St. Bonaventure at that time. So the Bonnies and the Knights of St. Mary started this rivalry. So there'll be a lot of people with stories at both of those games tonight. All right, back to Omaha. The best kind of non-suburban battle, if you consider West Side non-suburban, is Omaha North versus West Side. They've been playing since probably about 59, maybe not every year, but they've been playing since 59 when West Side moved up to the Metro. Well, actually the inner city, then before the Metro was formed. I've got a couple pictures of this rivalry. One's from 1966 when West Side, that's the 1968 picture. That picture's out at Burke. North is hosting that game. Burke was the new stadium. North was hosting out there and hosting West Side. But my other picture is from 66. This is West Side at North on the year West Side went 9-0 and then won the Metro and claimed their first state football title. So these two teams, now they're playing with a lot on the line tonight. They're number 2, number 3 in Class A. But these guys have played a lot of games that mattered. All right, here's my biggie. This is the one I came up with that I think is the best rivalry story of week 1. It involves my Hastings Tigers traveling to York. These two have been playing not just since 1906 at least, not every year, but since 1906. But since 1910, every time York is hosted, it's been at East Hill Park, where Levitt Stadium is right now. It's on the same dirt, though I've heard York has artificial turf. Hastings at York tonight. They played in 1905 out in the pasture west of town, which is York's last home field before they moved to East Hill Park. Hastings won that one 28-8. They played in 1910. That was the first time I know of that they played at East Hill Park. York won that one 19-6. These guys were playing in the days where you sometimes got into arguments. In 1914, in a game at Hastings, York was down 12-7, and they pulled their team off the field because they didn't like the refereeing at Hastings, took the 1-0 forfeit defeat. A lot of games like that in the early days for really old rivalries. These two teams played every year from 1920 when Hastings reinstated football. They had a player die in 1918 and took a year off. In 1920 till 1953, they played every single year. Then they didn't play again until the 2000s. The last 20 years, they've played 14 times. This will be the 15th meeting since 2006. Hastings still leads the series 29-20-4, but York's probably had the upper hand lately. All right, what great rivalry game did I miss? Chime in the comments, chime in on the Twitter feed, and let me know. And we'll see if this goes well enough together that we can throw together some other Suiting Up Varsity episodes as the year goes on. Enjoy yourself.